All right. It says we are live, and we're just going to do a quick check to be sure that we're streaming okay and that our audio and everything is okay. I think so. Oh, yep. I see us there, so we're doing okay.
Perfect.
All right. Well, we are back again to have, I think, a very timely discussion. And so I know I titled this like family ties retention, but I do think it's such a like timely topic as we get ready to go into the holidays. So this is my page. I'm Dr. Dooley. I think I've introduced myself in prior videos, but maybe you can just tell us again who you are and how we know each other, and then we'll jump right into the live.
Sure. So I am Megan Knox. I'm sorry, Dr. Dooley and I. Dr. Dooley and I went to high school together, so we've known each other junior high, high school. We grew up together,
Mm-hmm.
essentially. So we've known each other for
Ever
many years. Yes, forever.
for a long
For
time.
yes.
I really appreciate you being here. And one of the reasons I brought the topic to you is because I think I have always appreciated just like together. And I think that a lot of people feel like they have to have these kind of perfect family situations to be able to come together and just enjoy spending time together. And um I think your family just does a good job. I think your family does a good job of staying connected, even when it's not the holidays, which is a topic I'm gonna bring up later as we kind of go through things
Okay.
about the holidays. So I thought we would start by just talking about how we spent the holidays, like as kids, in general, kind of how we spend it, and then how we spend them now. So people will have a frame of reference for where we're both coming from. So I'll let you start.
Okay. All right. So I'll start this by saying we did not discuss this beforehand. So
I
we
like to be
didn't.
spontaneous. So I gave you an outline, but yeah, you don't kind of.
Yeah. I have no idea what she's going to ask. So I'm just going with it. But so growing up as a kid, my family all lived basically down the same road, down the same Knoxville Lane is actually what it's called. So we all lived very close. We grew up close. We lived close. We grew up close. Although we were cousins, we were brothers and sisters. We interacted more as we were all sister and brother. So holidays were nothing new to that. I mean, we would spend dinners together just on random Tuesdays and Thursdays. I would be at my Aunt Geneva's or at my Aunt Zelma's, or it was nothing for us to just be together. Um, so holidays were pretty much the same. We were always together during the holidays, having dinner together, whatever. So our lives were intertwined pretty regularly, whether it be for a holiday or for a regular Thursday night meal, we were always together.
Mhm.
But
And
you want me to go into now?
yeah, so y'all basically kind of just celebrate like collectively, kind of from since you were little with your extended family too. So not just like your like immediate biological brothers and sisters or whatever, but also like your extended family. You pretty much grew up with them very close. So it
Exactly.
wasn't so you like your cousins would be there. That wouldn't be like a big thing. Everybody
Exactly.
there.
Exactly.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
then how you do things now? So now you have an adult son,
Yeah.
yeah. So how do you do things now?
Yeah. So now, our relatives, our aunts, are older now, and so I know myself and my brother. We all of us are away now. Well, none of us live at home, so it is a trek to go home. Like I'm in Texas, so I'm 4 hours from home. Um, and we all, home is where we grew up, so that's where we kind of go back to in Arkansas. So I'm in Texas. My brother is in Tennessee. My other brother is in Texas. So in the Houston area. So we have to actually come home for the holidays. And we have um, my brother who lives in Nashville made a comment before that to just in talking. He said, not only for some, we do summer vacations together,
Mhm.
and we also do Thanksgiving together. and he's made the comment that we have to be intentional about being together. We have to make it intentional that our children will know each other. Yeah, that that my son will know his uncles, and that his son will know his aunt and uncle. We have to be very intentional. So we are very intentional on going home every Thanksgiving. Christmas is kind of because he is in Nashville, and weather. You never know what you're gonna get with weather. So, so Christmas is in and out, but Thanksgiving we definitely make it a point to come home. We rent a vacation home in Hot Springs, which is about 45 minutes from home base. So we have relatives in Little Rock that come home. We have relatives in Memphis that come. So it's basically my mother's sisters and then their families. We all come home for Thanksgiving. So we typically have about 45 to 50 45 to 55 that we cook for, and we all come home, and we're very intentional about coming home for Thanksgiving. If that is just the one time of the year that everybody knows we're coming home, we do that for Thanksgiving. Of course, last year was the first year that we didn't get together because of COVID. Because like I said, all of my aunts are older. And so this year was a battle. We discussed it. Are we doing it? Do we do it? Do we not? My aunt, who is almost 80, she'll be 80 next year. She said, I called her and asked, what about Thanksgiving? And she said, y'all stay where y'all at. We won't give y'all nothing and y'all don't bring us nothing. So, so we're just going to take another year off for Thanksgiving. But yeah, we typically get together every year for Thanksgiving.
And I like that, because I think that it does take it by being intentional, and but I think also like being willing to be flexible, and having priority outside of the holiday time to see our relatives. I think a lot of people completely depend on the holidays to see their relatives, collectively, which I get it. Most people are off at that time, but also to have some attention around, okay, well, what other times may I kind of use that intention to, see him, like with your nephew and stuff like that. Let me make it a point to really be intentional about doing that. So I really, I like that y'all do that. That's something that I've always liked, that I see that your family does. And I'll say for me growing up, of course, for the people who've seen our lives previously, we both grew up in a small town of about 10,000 people. So also a lot of my family, I grew up with my mom's sisters and their children grew up there. So I would say that typically our kind of structure is like we would probably celebrate just like at home with my brothers, my mom, and then typically we would have some point of the day where we would go and then all be together, typically at my grandmother's house. So when I was younger, that's typically what we would do. Let's say if it was Christmas, we're usually just kind of having opening presents with with my siblings, and then at some point during the day we would kind of go and kind of be with my cousins and everything. And then I think as I got older, you have those family situations where like the elder in the family really is the glue. And I definitely think that as I got older, it was like less of that, like more people kind of doing their own thing. Like I would have to be intentional to like go visit different people, as opposed to us having like that central place that we would meet. And I think just as I got kind of just up in age, it's kind of become that even more so now that my grandmother is in a nursing home. So if I want to see different people, it's like I have to make the point to go and do that, as opposed to a collective agreement that we're going to do one thing. And which that has its positive and negatives, but it's probably we're going to talk about family drama, probably decrease some of that. So I would say that was kind of growing up. And then now, because I also live away from home, significant distance from home, a few years ago I kind of made the decision, I'm not traveling during the holidays unless I absolutely have to, because for me, it almost always involves a flight, and it's just very stressful. Coming from Atlanta, the airport is always packed, especially around the holiday time, more likely to get delays during that time. Just even driving, it just was stressful. So what I would find is like, I'm the person, by the time I get home and get back from my destination, I'm tired, so I don't feel like I've been on vacation. I feel tired. So I think we have started to say, what kind of our own traditions, even if it's just me and my husband, like what traditions are we going to have, just the two of us even, because we're going to have, because both of us just got to the point where it was too tiring to do all the travel. And as you know, it can be even more expensive to do travel during this time because everybody's traveling. So I think for me, more in the last few years, probably 5 or 6 years, I haven't traveled as much. And we've really put more attention to like developing our own traditions kind of just within us, usually the two of us, or maybe more extended family where we do live with friends, making our holidays that way. So that's kind of where we are, at least kind of, at this point. And so people, that kind of gives them a kind of background and frame of reference. And I thought what we would start is about like grief and loss during the holidays. We'll start, I feel like, on the heaviest part of this conversation. With my patients around late September, October, I start asking them, how do you feel about the holidays? What do you do about the holidays? And that's because as I, in my practice, as I've gotten to be, a mid career psychiatrist now, I realize the holidays are so hard for people. It's some of the busiest time of the year for me, mental health wise, more appointments, more crises, more people just needing support. And I realize for a lot of people, it's the holidays really reactivate feelings of grief and loss that other people may not feel other times of the year. And it makes sense because you notice when someone you love now maybe isn't there. Your normal day-to-day life, you maybe aren't noticing it, but then the holidays come and it seems to magnify a grief or a loss. And I'm going to speak for myself. I know that, having like fertility issues, you go into, you have some thoughts in your mind how the holidays will be if you envision having children in them. And so to go a long period of time and that not happen, there's always like some degree. And I would say to me, it's more like a loss. It's like, okay, I can't grieve something that I actually had. I never had it, but I'm grieving the picture, the thought of something a future that is not here, it's not going to happen. And so I think for a lot of people, they have a loss like that. Maybe it isn't the death of a loved one. They're grieving the loss of something like that, something a little amorphous, even the loss of a family situation where you can get together. A lot of people have a hard time because they have a family situation that just isn't, it isn't good. It isn't positive. So they're grieving the loss of how they, hope that the holidays would be.
What you didn't have.
Which you didn't have.
Yeah.
And it's kind of hard to know what it would have been because you maybe never had it. Maybe, you had divorced parents and you always had to choose who you could spend holidays with. Like you never got to really be with your whole family on a holiday. And some people grieve the loss of what that could have looked like for them. But I know you like directly have experienced the loss of a very close loved one, your mom, and so I thought it would be helpful if you could kind of talk about just like how you navigated that. And, one thing people tell me is like, it never gets easier for them. I hear that a lot. And so I think it would be helpful since you've been coping with that loss for such a long time, just to share like some of your wisdom or the things that you have done, during the holidays.
Right. So I lost my mom in 96. So I was a junior in high school at that time. So even though it has been, and I hear people say all the time that it doesn't get easier. And I always, whenever I talk to anybody who does lose a loved one, I try to remind them or try to tell them that when you hear it doesn't get easier, that is not necessarily the truth. It's not the truth that it doesn't get easier. Because if you remember, if you can take stock of yourself and remember how you felt the day of or the day after, and now you know your emotions now, you realize that your emotions the day after are not the emotions that you have right now. And that means it has gotten a little easier. And it never, and another thing I always tell people is you now have a new normal. It'll never be the same. It will never, ever, ever be the same. It's just a reset. It's a reset of life.
It's like I'm on a different trajectory now. I can never go back and right.
It's totally different. It's kind of, you hear people always say pre 9/11, post 9/11, because the world changed after that. And now we're living in a pre-COVID, post-COVID world.
Right. We can never go back.
It'll never be the same. Right. It'll never be the same. You'll never hear somebody coughing right next to you and think nothing of it.
Right.
You know,
Right.
if somebody's having a coughing fit right next to you, you will always, no matter what you think about COVID, no
Right.
matter what
Right.
you feel,
You
if
will be
somebody beside you, exactly,
like,
exactly,
are you doing this? Or you have a mask on?
exactly,
Yeah.
it will always play in your mind because it's just a new world. It's a brand new world, and that's where just losing my mother, who was my primary caregiver. You know, it wasn't like she was. I lived with her alone. She was a single mother of me and my three brothers. I was 16. My brother, the next oldest brother, was 20. The other one was 21. The other one was 26. So when she passed, and we all, other than the 26-year-old, he lived out, but the rest of us all lived at home. So she was the everyday constant. So imagine a life post that. It was never the same. It was just simply never the same. And so, for anybody that is grieving, I will tell you one thing that I'm very sensitive to whenever I talk to anybody in grieving that is grieving is that first year. The
Okay.
first year from the date that your loved one passed until the next year, the anniversary date, it's like you're walking through a fog because you have to experience everything for the first time without your loved one.
I
And
call
that
that
is,
the year of first. Like to my patients, I
yes,
say it's gonna be the first, just whatever, the first Christmas, the
yes.
first birthday, the yeah.
Their first birthday, your first birthday, the first Christmas, the first Thanksgiving, the first Mother's Day, the
Right.
first, everything is the first. That year is by far the worst because it always plays in your mind. But once you get to that anniversary date, and I think then you start realizing, okay, I've settled into this for a year. And sometimes it takes people more than a year. You are you are never ever the same. You're never the same. So it's okay to move forward with life because it'll never be the same. You know, but you have to, change the trajectory of it already has changed.
Right.
And so you have to make plans forward from there. I know for my family specifically, for holidays, Thanksgiving would always be, my mother was, we always kind of went to my mom's house or went, we would, my mother was kind of the leader of sorts in that way. That we would she would, because she was the driver, so she would drive us there, or she kind of made the plans, kind of. So after she passed, we began to realize what was important. And so that was when we really started coming together every single Thanksgiving. And it was after that we really made it a point to get together, and make sure we didn't miss it. Because it was although she was sick, her illness was very quick, and she was gone very quickly. So it was kind of like it was a jolt to the entire family that, oh my goodness. And so we began to kind of make it a point to get together. And ultimately, bottom line is what my mother's death taught us is never to take a single moment for granted. And we try to make it, and that's what we keep in mind, especially. So I did during COVID. I sent everybody a personality quiz, all my family. Of course, I'm in a couple of text groups. It's like 17 of us in a text group, me and all of my cousins. And so I sent them all a link and said, take this personality quiz and send me your results back. Ironically, me and my brother were the only extroverts in the family. Who knew? Everybody else, me and Dexter were the only extroverts. Everybody else was an introvert. I had no clue. Uh, yeah. And me and Dexter are the ones that make all the plans, come up with all these grand ideas. But say that again.
That is interesting because there's other people in especially amongst your first cousins, I would think.
Me
That,
too.
yeah.
Me too. I was very surprised. Yeah.
One thing I think I've appreciated, because a lot of times when you do have a person who's like a glue and they pass away, the family just kind of disintegrates. And so I think I've always appreciated instead of having that, you're like, let's be intentional about doing the opposite of that, like coming together as opposed to just kind of getting washed away with the grief, which, the other thing I think that I appreciate is like when I'm with your family around the times, like talking about Net is like she's here. I mean, no, people don't try to like avoid talking about her. And I think even when people are sad to know that she's not here, I don't feel like it's like, well, let's not say anything about it because somebody might get upset. I think it's okay that y'all are like, okay. And sometimes people might be a little sad about it, but it's like, that doesn't mean we should act like we can't never talk about her again.
Right.
Because a lot of people do that. And I think to me, it just magnifies it because it's very obvious that this person who is here, who used to, like you said, be the glue or just whatever their role was in the family is not here. So I think that's also something that I really appreciate because at any time somebody might tell a story or just talk about her, I don't feel like she's so far away. You know what I mean? Like from people's mind. Seems like she's right here in people's mind.
Exactly.
And I think that's a take home, like for anybody watching, as painful as it can be. I think particularly when you're around people who you love, who also know the person that y'all all lost, like y'all all love this person, to share some of that grief and loss, even if it's sad sometimes. It doesn't have to, we don't have to pretend like it's great. Let's just always tell good stories. I mean, that's fun too. But why can't we like share in the sadness? Because we actually all are sad. So we don't have to pretend like we're all okay and we don't want to upset anyone. People can cry.
And that's something too, like, although Net was my mother, she was something else to everybody else. So it was a great loss, throughout the family. So everybody had a relationship with her. So that is very true. And the same, my grandfather died when I was 5, and we affectionately call him Daddy. Because, he was our father. It was my mother's father. And we still talk about him as if he just died yesterday. Like, we still bring up stories about him and laugh about him. But I mean, just it keeps their presence present,
Right. Even when we're sad that they're not here, but not acting as if we have to pretend like we can't ever say anything about the person, because I think that makes it harder. And then, especially if you live away from your family and you're not around other people who, it's something to be said about sharing your loss with people who knew that person, because let's say maybe your coworkers or just like your new friends you developed, they still, even if you talk about them, they still didn't know them in the same way. So I think it's something to be said about sharing those stories and just the feelings and sadness, whatever, with people who also know that person and can relate to what that loss is directly. It doesn't have to be, but I think it's something to be said about that in a healthy way.
And to appreciate how far you've come in your own journey of grief. Like, just to recognize that, like I said, how you felt the day after is not how you feel now. And to give yourself the pat on the back that, okay, I'm doing good. I'm making it. I didn't think I was going to make it, but I'm doing good. I did get up and go to work. I did, we did celebrate Thanksgiving together and I made it through, and then here comes Christmas. Okay, I made it through. Give yourself the pat on the back that you did get through it. And it gets easier. Like I said, never the same, never ever the same, but it does you begin to be able to cope with it better.
I love that too. Like starting from a place of self-compassion, like, man, it's rough. Like, give yourself a break. Like if you just barely, some people tell me, Doc, I slept the whole day. I just slept right through that day. And then the next, I'm like, but hey,
you made it through.
And some years, and maybe last year you were okay, but this year, you know what? You don't have to take your Benadryl and just sleep the whole day through. Have compassion for how you need to cope. I mean, hopefully we're not doing something self-destructive. Like, just destructive.
I'll tell you, my mother passed on Valentine's Day. Every year on February 15th, I'm like, whew, okay, it's over. It's over. I made it through. And it's been 20, however long ago 1996 was. So whatever that is, you do the math.
Right. It's like, and I know you always post a remembrance of her and people like to say things and to share, but like from my perspective, and I knew I feel like I didn't know her as closely because we got to be closer friends a little bit like later, like actually
Mhm.
after your mom passed away. I feel like we got to be closer friends,
Yeah.
and then into adulthood. But I think just to see like her
Yeah.
influence on your as an outsider looking in, I'm like, man, I wish I would have known her, like
Yeah.
more than I did. Because I'm like, man,
Exactly.
she kept some stuff together. So I really
Yeah.
appreciate you sharing that because I know that it's people listening who are going to be going through that year of first. And I think to give
Hmm.
them like some perspective on how you do it.
Yeah.
Some people honestly say, I don't know how I'm gonna do it.
Yeah.
I don't know what to do. And I'm like, you have to get up every day, like you said, and realize, I think about that. I'm a Marvel movie fan, and so they talk about the multiverse. You in a different multiverse now. You in a different
Exactly.
universe. The universe you was in
Oh,
on
that is a great analogy.
that's how I
That's a
think
great analogy. That is a great analogy.
you're
Yes.
here, the other people are
Yes.
here, but that world that would have existed with them in there
Yes.
is different.
That's a great
And
analogy.
that's kind of how I've been kind of describing it to people lately, just because a lot of people know that reference. But
Yeah.
it sounds like you kind of also basically said the same thing. So
Yeah.
thank you for sharing that wisdom because I feel like at this point it's been a long time and you've been dealing with it for a long time. So you do have the wisdom that people who are newly dealing with that, loss
Yeah.
of a loved one don't have. Um, so let's move on to I guess the whole concept of like family drama, so I was thinking, the movie Soul Food, the movie, like
Yes.
when I chat will know that movie, but I think about there's like a scene in that movie, is usually in the advertisement where it's a huge table and all the people are sitting there and grandma and the kids and the food and they're all like sharing and talking and laughing. And I think a lot of people have a thought like that, whether it's soul food or another type of movie like that about the holidays. Like this
Yeah.
is the epitome of what we should be doing. We're eating on china with good forks and spoons, and we ain't eating on paper plates. Like this is what we're doing, right? And I think so for many of us, and for some people that might be their reality, but I think it's fair to say probably the majority of us, aren't sitting at the table that big that seems to be able to
Mhm.
fit like 20 people. It's the biggest table ever, eating off china. You know, so um, but I think a lot of people feel like when they have family dysfunction or what I'm calling drama, that they're kind of alone in that, and everyone else is living that soul food, long table experience. And so, I guess I want to just get your general thoughts on just your general thoughts about like drama during the holidays, and then how do you navigate, um, kind of navigate the conflict? Because I mean, conflict just happens sometimes. Old wounds come up, people you haven't seen since last year who may have certain feelings about certain things. And just how do you tend to navigate that in the holiday season?
I think that, as close as my family is, and like I said, it's Thanksgiving, 45 to 55 people there. There are more than 45 to 55 people in my family. So that means some people are like, I'm not coming over there with y'all. So, I mean, let's tell the truth.
Like you said, count them numbers, run them numbers.
Yeah, yeah,
Everybody ain't here.
yeah, that ain't everybody. So,
Everybody ain't
but
here.
yeah, exactly, exactly. Y'all can have that. Um, um, but and it's not always, there's always like some side conversation going. Like it's not like drama is just disappeared just because my family loves each other, but we still are. Kim specifically is in the kitchen whispering in my ear.
It's funny.
Everything.
If she watched this, she gonna be mad at you for bringing her in. She be in there making
No,
the dressing. Kim, we know you
exactly.
whispering over it. Uh-huh.
Exactly. And that's the thing. It's always a debriefing after after any time we get together. There's a debriefing.
Girl.
um, but
Mhm.
I think that that happens every. I can't imagine that doesn't happen in all families. You know what I mean? That has to happen in every family. I think the ultimate thing is you have to understand. Again, even going back. Okay, this is like we're together for 4 hours. If we can sit at work with that with that one person, if we can sit at work with that one person for hours that we don't necessarily vibe with, for 8 hours a day for, for Monday through Friday, then we can be with our family for those 4 hours or something. It's okay to whisper a little bit in the kitchen and still speak and say, hey, how y'all doing?
That's a good point, though. I mean, think about how much we tolerate in other settings, without saying the things that we would want to say. Because that is a feedback I get. Like, well, if I see this person, I'm going to say this. I'm like, but how many other people do you, like you said in the workplace, that you wish you could say, but you don't, you have restraint for, but you can't have restraint for your cousin, over,
Right.
the rocking chair y'all didn't agree to get when grandma passed away. Like, you have to say
Exactly.
something about that today,
Of
so.
all days.
I think that's a
Seriously.
good point. Yeah, of all days, we got to talk about that rocking chair. I'm using it as an example because that was a real thing, a real conflict that one of my patients has, a patient I saw several years ago. Like, totally stopped talking to another cousin because of a rocking chair that they couldn't agree who could get it when grandma passed away.
A rocking chair.
A rocking chair. I mean, I'm talking about not speaking to this person for a significant period of time, missing family gatherings, and I'm like, oh, I'm thinking it's like someone slept with someone's like husband, or I mean, that's kind of serious. I felt that's what it was over. I was like, wow, okay. I mean, it's not for me to say it's not worth that if you feel that it's that serious, but it does like beg the question about it. So I think that's a good point.
Yeah.
Um, what about, because a lot of conflicts that I hear about are a lot of times about expectations. People have
Yeah.
expectations about where you should be and who you should be celebrating with and how things should
Yeah.
be done. Just a lot of hurt feelings. Seems like it's around maybe you only, for example, you may have only had so much time off of work, so you decided to go to do this one thing, and then maybe some people have feelings about it now because you didn't see them. That's pretty common because we can only oftentimes go so many places. So I guess, how do you navigate that? Like, when people are upset with you or have feelings about like decisions you're making about how you're spending the holidays, or not spending the holidays, how do you kind of navigate those relationships?
I think like one thing that you said that earlier that you said, you kind of come home and you have to go house to house. I think that that's something that is so real, and that is something that when you're traveling, when you're at home, you don't appreciate it as much as when you are traveling in, because now you have just traveled 7 hours, and now you are being tasked with going to see everybody in order to see everybody. Like people, I think, and my brother and I have had this conversation before, and of course now that we're older, we're just like, what we've resolved and settled on is, hey, this is where I'm going to be. If you want to see me, come by and say hi. Like, because I just traveled 7 hours. The least you can do is come by and just say, hey, how you doing? you know?
We're at home because, I mean, the town is very small. You can go from
Yeah,
one to the other in about 5 to 6 minutes. So
yeah,
yeah.
yeah. At the least, just come by and say hi. Like, there's no way you can go by and see everybody. And there's no way all of your plans and what you plan will make everybody happy. They just won't. You won't be able to satisfy everybody. And so you really do have to think what's best, not only for you, but what's best. Like you said, like there's always that one glue that holds everybody together, and there's always that one person. So if you do it, like for us, it's my aunt who was my mother's best friend. They, always did everything together. If my mother wasn't at my aunt's house, my aunt was at my mother's house. It's that kind of thing. So she is like our matriarch, and so it's kind of like whatever she wants goes, kind of thing. And when we come to town, we go to her house. So we're here. We're at her house. Come by and see us.
Right.
If you're mad that we didn't come to yours, you know. I
Like,
mean, the holidays are so stressful anyway. You
right.
have to calm. You have to do whatever you can to get through them.
I was just going to add that I think so for anyone listening who is going to be like at the home base and you have people
Mhm.
traveling in, just to consider, the money and time and effort it really takes to travel 7, 8 hours, do turnaround trips just to kind of be somewhere and to maybe consider, to kind of taking that maybe maybe it is an extra step. Maybe you do have to drive, 30 minutes to see someone because they're staying, at the aunt's house, like to think about putting that effort because even though it seems like effort for you to leave home and go 30 miles, if they've flown or driven, 7, 8 hours, I feel like you can also put in some effort, right? In a relationship, both people should be putting some effort. So, just consider that for anyone who's listening is going to be in the home base, maybe ask the people you want to see, oh, could I stop by here or your room or, can we go out to lunch or something? Or maybe when we don't have enough time, if you truly want to see that person, as opposed to
Yes,
expecting them to, kind of do the merry-go-round of seeing everybody.
yes, yes,
Um, I was gonna say, to me, what you really kind of lay out there is just boundaries. You have to kind of go into it understanding what your goals are for your holidays and your holiday trips and sticking to that. And I find that sometimes the hardest thing about having a boundary is being able to tolerate the feelings you get back from other people once you set it. You may be fine
yes,
saying no, or this is what I'm doing, but the challenge might be being able to tolerate when people didn't guilt you, you know.
yes.
It might be, well, we never know how much time we have. So, we ain't gonna see you this time, or such and such is sick and they're getting older. We're not gonna be able to, I think being able to tolerate what you get back, or maybe this year you just can't do it. You're like, I can't come, or I can't be there. I don't have any money to participate. And I think just respecting people's boundaries and, when you get guilted or tried, other people try to induce you to do something, like how do you respond to that or deal with that? Because I think that's what a lot of people have good intentions. Okay, this is what I'm doing. I ain't gonna do this. This is what I'm spending. But then when the boundary gets like, people try to go past it, they're like, oh, I don't know what to do.
Mm-hmm. Yes. And I
So
think also, speaking of that, the holidays are always stressful. We know that. It's always because there's just Thanksgiving, Christmas,
the new year.
New Year's Eve. Yeah, they're back to back to back. It's okay. Like I said, we normally get together for Thanksgiving, my entire family. This year, because we couldn't get together for Thanksgiving pre Delta variant, we were able to get together for July 4th. So that was before the Delta variant broke out, right? So we were able to go home. All of us, we told everybody that it's fully vaccinated. We will be outside, which made my aunts more comfortable. That they were able to sit outside.
Let me ask you, when you just
Yeah.
said fully vaccinated, so was that a boundary that y'all said that if you weren't, you couldn't come, or are you just mentioning that?
No, no, it
Okay.
was it was a boundary. It
So
was
y'all established a boundary that this cookout, this 4th of July is for people who are fully vaccinated. Okay.
yes.
So I guess like how do people respond to that? Because I think that that's a
It was
really controversial boundary. How do people respond
It
to
was
that?
interesting. It was interesting. Okay, so this is July 4th, right? So vaccinations had really become very widely available. Like I got back. I was one of the first. They said you could get a vaccination. I said sign me up. Okay, so I was one of the first. So I ended up, gosh, waiting in a 2-hour line to get the first one, waiting in a 2-hour line to get the second one. It took me 4 hours to get vaccinated. Okay, now you can walk in Kroger. I tell people all the time, you can walk in Kroger and go get your ice cream, go get a vaccination, and be in your car before your ice cream melts. And I stood in line for 4 hours. Okay, but so this was pre-Delta variant though. So everybody was. I sent a text message out, and just said, "We are coming home for July 4th. We are cooking out. You don't even have to bring anything. We're doing hot dogs and hamburgers, just a basic cookout. I'm stopping at Sam's, getting hamburgers and hot dogs, nothing elaborate. But we just want to see each other. but you got to be fully vaccinated.
Okay.
Okay? Fully vaccinated. Of course, that's not gonna go over without a pinch. Of course not.
Keep in mind that we are from Arkansas, which have like some of the lowest vaccination rates, I think, in the whole
Yes,
country at one point. Yeah.
yes, yes. But we said, but essentially, where we landed is just respect our older relatives because they're
Okay.
all fully vaccinated and they're gonna be there. All of
Okay.
my aunts were there, and we're talking, 72 years old and up. So we were like, just respect our people and get fully vaccinated. Were there some people there that were not fully vaccinated? Of course, but there were some questions, of course. How are you going to make sure that they're vaccinated? Are you going to stand at the door and check vaccination cards? And are you? And of course, I was the planner of this whole thing, and I'm coming in 4 hours, driving 4 hours. And I was like, no, I'm not going to do that. But I am going to. Luckily, the day was so beautiful that it was like 70 something degrees. So we were able to sit outside and really enjoy ourselves. And I just asked people to be fully vaccinated if you're close to the relatives and stuff. And luckily, we didn't have any issues. People just kind of kept their distance from each other, really.
I think that's such a good example, though, of like setting a boundary. We all know how it is. People are gonna, once you do it, people are gonna have some, and we're not even gonna get into that. That's just too controversial. But we know people just
Yeah.
have different feelings about it.
Yeah.
But I think, some people would have let that stop their event. And I think to have some hopefulness that people would, respect older folks. We know that they're more susceptible and, all of that if they weren't fully vaccinated, or, if they just maybe were doing some out at the concert or something, just 2 nights before, or something like that, just being respectful, but not letting the pushback change what
Right.
what the boundary was, which was
because there was pushback, but that's not how this works.
right. So
Yeah.
you're able to, I think the health of your auntie, or really just health of everybody, but them in mind, it outweighs the feelings that people may have about the boundary. And I think to me,
Yeah.
that's really the take home. It's like you can have a boundary that supports you, your emotional health, your physical health, your financial health. And even if other people feel very strongly about what that is, it's okay to make the choice that serves you. All the choices we make don't have to be in someone else's with their mental health and their emotional health. We got to take care of ourselves first too, whether that's, vaccination or just whatever the situation is. So I think that is, definitely a take home when we have these boundaries. Think about it. What do you need?
Yes.
And it's okay to make a decision for the holidays or anything else based on what serves you. That just seems really hard for people, but it's okay.
And it really is. It really is okay. It's okay to say, no, I'm not coming over. I don't feel comfortable doing that.
Right. I'm just not coming.
In planning this before Thanksgiving, I kind of did a roundtable where I checked in with multiple cousins from multiple generations and just texted and said, what do you think about meeting for Thanksgiving? And there were many that said, y'all can go ahead. I love y'all from a distance, but I'm not coming this year.
Right. Yeah, some people are just like, I'm not. Yeah. And I'm sure some people didn't come to the cookout because they still maybe didn't, even if they maybe were vaccinated, they just didn't feel comfortable. But again, not to make those people be like, what do you mean? We might not get together for Thanksgiving. So if you don't see us, you ain't going to see us, then. And I'm like, but to respect the boundary, like that person came to a conclusion based on whatever their thoughts are. We don't know everybody's health, even though your family, you don't know what they got. You ain't in the doctor's office with them. So, let them make their own decisions. So that's a like really great example of the boundary, but not letting it sway, because what tends to happen when we do that, then resentment comes.
Yes.
Because we didn't do the thing that we knew we wanted to do to take care of ourselves. Or if somebody got sick, now we blaming folks now. We got to blame some folk up in there who wasn't vaccinated, right?
Yeah.
No, we're just going to have the boundary. So I really, that's great. That was a good example. I don't know if you meant to give that one, but that was a good example.
I didn't.
That was a good example. Well, let's move on as we get kind of somewhat towards the end of our time and just talk about finances. Because I think that's the other I think about those big three. I think about, the grief and loss, the boundaries about things, and then the finances. And, as we enter into this season, Black Friday's coming, Christmas is coming, I am really amazed. And maybe it's because we grew up and we didn't have a lot. So my expectations about what's going to happen maybe is just lower, even though, I'm financially solvent now, but I'm really amazed at the lengths that people go through. No
Me too.
judgment at all, but they feel pushed to do
Yeah.
financially. I mean, some people feel so much pressure to buy gifts for all these people, or even spending money to cook food, because food kind of adds up if depending on what you're making, if you're cooking a lot of pies and all these kind of ingredients. I mean, people really feel pushed to do something that's not within their budget. And so I guess I wanted to ask if you've ever felt that pressure, and if so, how you dealt with it, or just any thoughts you have about how not to overdo your budget this holiday season.
Yeah, I've like you said, I have one child. Had him when I was young, so in the same, I just never really. I remember I decided early on. So I remember his first, your child's first Christmas. You go all out and you do all of these. He had all of these toys, and then I remember the day like we were cleaning up. Me and his dad were cleaning up. He was 1 year old, and he was in the corner playing with one of my hair rollers. And I said, never again. He doesn't even care about these toys. He's over here playing with my roller. And I just almost went broke trying to make sure he had a great Christmas. So I was like, yeah, no, never again. I'll never do that again. And so my rule for him has always been the one thing you want, the one thing you need. And then if everybody else wanted to buy him other gifts, then that was fine. But I always ask him throughout the year, what is the one thing you want? And he got one thing he wanted and one thing he needed, and that was it. And he's never really known elaborate Christmas.
I'm so glad you said that. Everyone listening, he is a happy, well-adjusted young man. And he went his life, and I know he got gifts from tons of other people, your family and stuff.
Yeah.
But I'm just saying from you, he, hasn't turned into, a serial killer. He's okay. Because I think some people would gasp at what you just said.
Mm-hmm.
They would gasp that he could be happy and healthy and well-adjusted with what you just said.
Yes. And he has said before, you know what his favorite gift was? His aunt and uncle, Phil and Gay, took him to Walmart and let him pick out all of these little toys that he wanted. And they took him through and said, what do you want? And so he went and got all of these dollar store toys, and they just bought all of these little trinkets and put them in a basket. And he said that was his best gift ever. Like just because it was a bunch of stuff. Right. Like he just thought that was great.
Ooh, look at all this stuff I got. It costs like $12. Look at all this stuff I got. And he picked it too.
Yes. So. Yes, exactly. But yeah, I've never ever been one to. Now I say that. However, this year for Christmas, we're going to New York City. We're going to Broadway, and I've already bought like multiple tickets, and this Christmas gift to him may be more expensive than his entire lifetime.
But it's also for an experience and not just a thing,
Exactly. And I know one of my friends here, actually, she doesn't do gifts, and they go on a Christmas cruise every year. So she takes her family on a Christmas cruise, and they take one gift because they're on the cruise, that they can fit in their suitcase, and they exchange gifts on Christmas Day there. But the gift is the experience,
right?
And they've always done that since her boys were little. They've always done that.
I love that. I love that.
Yeah.
Doing something which people would maybe consider non-traditional, and that is an experience. They will think about all these cruises they've been on, all the places they've been, and pictures they've taken, and as opposed to, like you said, the toys that and of course kids are going to ask for a lot of different things, because that's just how kids do. But like, what really matters? I mean, I think that's my take home for, because it seems like a lot of pressure is around that, to make the kids seem like they have just the best Christmas, and knowing that most of the things that they remember. I know for me, I feel like I remember my mom bakes a lot, and she makes like Christmas cookies. And that's one thing that really stands out to me is that we would cook all these cookies, all these cakes, and people would like come to our house and we would drop them off. And I remember just like how happy people would be. People would be so happy, to get these. And again, I'm kind of used to it because my mom cooks all the time and we can eat this good food. But I'm thinking, man, for some people to have something like homemade, it means a lot, that somebody
Mhm.
put the effort and made something. And then I feel like, wow, we really like that person was like really happy to get that. And I mean, like that's one thing that stood out for mine is just how we would help my mom make all these, especially when we were little, we would make because my mom would cook a lot, and how we would just help her and then deliver it to people, who would ask her or see her in the store, and that she got a lot of pleasure out of doing that. And like, I think I remember that, as far as like just how happy it made people and how it felt good to help other people feel good as opposed to any one gift. I mean, the only gift honestly I can remember from childhood is Kid Sister, and I really did want that.
No, oh my goodness. You just said that.
Yeah.
I remember from Christmas when I was a kid, what I remember is my brother getting the He-Man castle and my mom buying me a Barbie. And I remember thinking, I don't want that. I want that He-Man castle. I don't want
You want Gray Skull and what's his name, Skeletor? You want She-Hulk? You want that too?
I wanted to play with the He-Man castle. That's what I remember about.
Can you remember like just think of all of the? I think maybe that and like Cabbage Patch. I think because that was just
Yeah.
like so huge, but I can't really remember anything else that just like really stands out. So I think you know to me again around the finances is having boundaries. I mean, I think just get used to practicing telling people that you don't. I'm gonna be kind of use my vernacular here, but say I ain't got it. I practice that. Practice your no to finances, and that you don't have to feel embarrassed or like you're less than. I know in some families, sometimes you have people who have more, have less. So you're not really competing with anyone. There's nobody that you have to keep up with. You
But
only.
don't you feel though in this age of social media, like that people feel more pressure to show their pictures from
Yeah.
Christmas and show what their child got and show what they did.
Right.
Like,
Yes. I think of these pictures sometimes where there's like a tree and there's like so many presents. It's like the presents going up the tree, and then people are like, I like to give my kids good Christmas. And you know, like no judgment to that, whatever. If you worked and you want to do that, but what we're saying is as adults, most of us don't quite remember the presents, even the small number. You would think if you have a small number, you would remember it more because there wasn't that many of them. We can't remember, you know? And so I think if you're doing that and you're not pressed, I mean, but if you're pressed, if I'm legitimately people are telling me they are paying for Christmas from last year now. If that's happening, then you overspent your budget. It shouldn't take you a year to get out of debt from something you did last year. Even if you really wanted to do that. Like that would have to be an experience like for me, I can't even imagine what I would go into debt for Christmas, that is not whether even if it's your wedding. If you got married last year and you still paying off that wedding from married at Christmas last year and you still paying, you overspent that wedding too. I mean, I think it's like staying basically knowing that it's okay to have boundaries around what you want to spend in your budget and not try to compete with people. And I mean, what I say about social media is that most of it, what percent? A lot of it is just fake. I mean, that's just all I think about it.
it's just
People
highlight. It's just highlight.
highlight, right? People
Yeah.
flossing, people renting, especially in Atlanta, a lot of people rent things. People rent whole houses, people rent Bentleys. It's like, man, I know you. You work for the state. You do not own that Bentley. So we all know that Bentley ain't yours. Cool, bruh.
Oh.
You know,
Oh.
we know you got that Louis Vuitton from the bag man up there in by Lenox Mall. He sell them bags. We know that ain't Louis Vuitton. Louis Vuitton same on inside, same on and outside. I look on the inside of your bag. It look like trash. Paper bags inside of there. They ain't no Louis Vuitton. You knew that too. So don't get on. Don't get on there. But no shade to that though. If you want to get a knockoff bag or something, because that's important. I guess my point is why try to pretend for other people who don't know you, most of them, and don't care about you really.
And also, I mean, this may be okay, I know this is extra, but but the question is like when you're talking about children and buying gifts and things of that sort, you have to wonder though, what does your child, what type of love language does your child have?
Ooh, I
Like
like that.
for example, my child is not moved by gifts at all. He's not moved by stuff. Stuff doesn't impress him at all. Like he has no interest in stuff. Like he recently had a car accident. He got hit by somebody and it totaled out his car. So I was like, all right. He just graduated too. Did I tell you that he graduated? So
No, no.
so,
Congratulations. Oh,
so I was
congratulations.
like, yeah. So I was like, okay, so for your graduation gift to move you out into the real world,
Okay.
um, yeah, so I'll put in for your car. So I was like, okay, we'll use the money that you got back from your car. I'll put in a third, and you put in a third. All
Okay.
right. So and we'll go buy you a new car. Of course, car prices now are ridiculous,
Even used
ridiculous.
ones, ridiculous. Yep.
Oh, they're ridiculous. So I was like, what kind of car do you want? I don't care. As long as it's got some wheels, I don't care. So what kind of car do you want? I want a Tesla. I was like, you're not getting a Tesla. Okay, well then I don't care. So he's never been that type of person. However, experiences do move him.
Okay.
So I say that to say he would have rather me spent money that I was gonna buy on gifts to use some PTO at work and take him, downtown. Let's go to a museum or go use that money for something else, for an experience rather than things. So know
Right.
your children. Like, don't buy, it serves no purpose to have all of this stuff, all of this material stuff, if that's not who they are. That if they don't get moved by stuff, then don't stress over it.
I like that. I'm gonna just put the link. I mean, I know that's really popular, but maybe some people haven't heard of the love languages. So when we get done with the live, I'll just include that book and link to that with the summary from this show, just so people can, if they haven't heard of that, that they can check that out because it doesn't just help in romantic relationships; it can help in just your relationships in general with people
In
too.
general, knowing what moves that person or what that person prefers. Yeah.
Well, we're getting close to the end of that time, so I'm just gonna kind of wrap up and summarize some of the things that we have said. So, we talked at the beginning about navigating grief and loss, and I think one of my take homes, from your experience doing that is just kind of be acknowledging that there's a before and after, that things won't ever be the same. And like you said, just checking in with yourself, about how you did kind of immediately after a loss and how you're doing now, and kind of use that experience to know that you are strong enough, even though it's painful, even though it's hard, that you are strong enough to navigate and go on from that loss. We talked about boundaries and whether that's boundaries around your time, your location, your finances, that it's okay to set those boundaries and that to do the work of being able to tolerate what you get back from the boundary that you put out. Like that's a lot of times where the work is doing that. And then I like how you just summed it up and ended it, really kind of get to know people and what moves them. I like how you put that when it comes to your money and your finances. People may or may not really care about getting a gift at all. They want the gift of your time or your motivation. Some people are just really great motivators and there's things you can do around that or just whatever your other talents are. People want the gifts, I say, of your talent, not necessarily what your finances can buy. So I think that's a really good tip, a really good way to close things up. Do you have any final words or things you want to add before we end up today?
I think to summarize it for me, what it is always meant as far as family. I think what we talked about is just spending time with family, that kind of thing. I, I would just challenge people to think back on their childhood or think back if you're talking about like what you want for your children as far as Christmas and holidays and stuff. Think back to what was your greatest day. Like what do you think of? And 9 times out of 10, if you think back to when you were a kid, you don't remember the gifts. You remember the time spent. And that's ultimately what it is. And whether it is, like I said, whether it is Thanksgiving and Christmas or a random day in July or a random day in May that we just say, hey, we're going to get together and we're going to do this. Just time together with family, time together with friends, people who may not be biological family, but just may be close people you have made family, your friends that you have made family. They're just as important to just spend some time with people. I 100% believe, I go to my grave believing that relationships matter. How you treat people matters. The time you spend with people matters, because that's ultimately what you will remember in the end. And when people are gone, that's what you will remember, the time you spent with them together. So try not to make it stressful. It is what it is. Even if it's 2 days, it'll be 2 days that you may remember for the rest of your life. Just enjoy it as much as you can. As much as you can.
I love that. That's a great way to kind of summarize, and I think a great challenge to people as we kind of go forth in the holiday season. Well, we're going to wrap up until our next chat, and we don't know when that'll be, but what topic that'll be on. But I really appreciate you being here to just kind of share some tips and share your wisdom. So
thank you very much.
You're welcome. Bye.
Bye bye.